What was the temperature?
104.
104, yeah. So it's been quite a change. I was down in Kansas this time last year. I finished up my PhD down there and started here in October. So I've been here about 8 months, but it's been quite a shock going from about 3 weeks of 110 degrees there in July to the winter in Brookings. And so I grew up about an hour south of Sioux City, and what my role is now, I'm the new agronomy extension agronomist, and I'm also in charge of the variety testing program. So for any of you who are familiar with Bob Hall, he's retired and I'm the new Bob Hall. So one of the big things that I've started is to just increase awareness about variety testing and the importance of the results. Part of that efforts are to increase awareness both online and in the field. So I'm here today, and we do have a new Facebook page that's at the top of the handout you have there. I'll post pictures, updates about conditions at sites, not only wheat, but also other crops that we're working on. We have a field pea variety trial here with Dwayne over yonder. We also have grain sorghum that I'm working on here as well. So we have stuff across the state. We will have signs up that say crop performance testing with the extension logo. They're about 3 foot by 2 foot. That will be up across the state at all of our locations with our cooperators and on the research farms. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Feel free to contact me with any variety questions. Like I said, I've worked with winter wheat. Spring wheat's a new one for me moving north, but I'm really interested in working with that this spring. And one of the handouts that I wanted to highlight, some of the new spring wheat varieties that Carl Glover released in 2011, Advance and Forefront, have really done really well. Forefront has a really good disease package. We've seen some bacterial leaf streak in spring wheat already this year, and Forefront has a pretty good rating for bacterial leaf streak in comparison to some of the spring wheat varieties. Advance had a few phone calls about and talking about Advance. If you're looking for high yield potential spring wheat, something that can really yield when you get in that 80 bushel range, Advance is one of those things that can really keep up and give you those type of yields in comparison to some of the other spring wheats. So those are two new spring wheat varieties from the SDSU program that is obviously supported and helped by the Wheat Commission, and Randy will talk about that a little bit later. In terms of other spring wheat on this table on the front side, anything that's in bold, so for example, Brick, Select, Forefront, Digger, Soren, Advance, all those are recommended spring wheat varieties for South Dakota. Each year we meet as a group that includes the wheat breeders, Foundation Seed, Crop Improvement, me, and amongst other people, and we pretty much go through, look at the yield data, other considerations for wheat production in South Dakota, and come up with a recommended list of spring wheat varieties for South Dakota, and do the same thing with winter wheat. For spring wheat varieties that are new in the plots, I handled all those application and entries. A lot of those are, one of them is the Linkert is a Minnesota release. That's new. We'll have data on that this year. Will be on the results page, as well as a new one from AgriPro, and maybe Claire will talk a little bit about that one later. Also two from Lima Grain Breakaway, and a new one that's called 0551 for now. I don't know if they're going to change the name, but that should be released this next year as well. Also, Westbred has a new Clearfield wheat variety, spring wheat variety that's also, I'm guessing, stem sulfite. I'm assuming it's a solid stemmed wheat variety, as well as Meridian Seeds was a new company that worked with us this year, and they have a new spring wheat variety called Stingray. So those will all be in the results this year, and instead of just waiting for the yield results, go ahead and check out the Facebook page on the progress. I'll have pictures if we start to find some disease differences. Emmanuel will probably be going out and looking at some of these variety trials and letting people know what we're seeing before we even get to harvest. So that's one good way to keep up. Moving on to winter wheat. I think Dwayne mentioned most of all the bulk wheat here is Alice. Is that right, Dwayne? Yeah. Yep. And that's a nice recommended white winter wheat here for South Dakota, as well as some of the other bold ones. Some of the ones that have really done well lately. Overland isn't as new. Another one, SY Wolf, and Claire might talk about that a little bit more. I've really been impressed with how that one's yielded across the region, not just South Dakota. And that's been pretty impressive winter wheat variety. And so all the ones in bold, I'm not going to go through that, but there's kind of a summary of the state yields from this last year across the state. For more specific yield numbers, go ahead and click on the yield button on the Facebook page and you can see the individual yield results for locations across the state last year. And harvest will probably be a little bit later for spring wheat this year and for winter wheat than normal, along with a lot of crops. But I guess for other diseases, Fusarium head blight, another one, that would kind of be the difference. Overland has done a pretty good job with that in terms of resistance, and that's kind of a real strength. When it comes to SY Wolf, another winter wheat variety, tan spot, it handles tan spot, I think, pretty well, right, Claire?
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't have head scab resistance, but other than that, it's got, or stripe rust. Stripe rust,
Correct.
pretty variable on all of them.
Yep, and we haven't seen any, Emmanuel might talk about this, but we haven't seen any stripe rust yet. I was down in Nebraska over Memorial Day weekend. The wheat was already headed out in southeast Nebraska. I stepped in a few fields and didn't see any stripe rust there, but they have found it at Meade, which is central Nebraska. So haven't seen any yet. The big ones for me are the bacterial leaf streak in the future to keep out. I'll look out for that, and how our varieties perform, as well as we're used to scab. So with any, I'll take probably questions later. Feel free to track me down, grab my business card. And like I said, I'm new, so you can rake me over the coals. It's good for me.